And now for our feature presentation.
He'll be fire on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series. Watson, touchdown. Hunter Renfrow. He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
The Senegal baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers.
Get the ball advantage. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. Find them at stokesvw.com. Find us on the JB and Goldwater app. You can download that. It is free, and you can watch and listen to our program daily between 12 and 2 o'clock. Check us out at jbandgoldwatershow.com, and make sure you follow us on social media at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Media JB, and at Darren Goldwater. 843-321-8893 is our phone number. It is also our text line, and you can get a hold of us there. You can always pop a note in via whatever app you might be using outside of our app, if it's Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, if you're watching on the TV in your home, if you're watching on a computer, wherever, send us a note, and we'll make it a part of our show. August 11th, cruising right along to football season. Tomorrow night, we've got the Field of Dreams game. Can't wait for that. In baseball, we also have preseason NFL football tomorrow night and on through the weekend. We got the Little League World Series all set to go here shortly. So it's a pretty good start to what's getting close to fall. And we'll talk about some of that today. We'll also talk to Hale McGranahan at 12:30. JC he might join us at the end of the week, maybe Friday. If not, then we'll just catch back up with him next Wednesday. It's a travel day for him to get back home from vacation. He was in Columbia yesterday and was able to get a good look at the University of South Carolina's football team. They're off today in preseason practice, but we've got Hale McGranahan joining us in about 25 minutes or so. And part 7, it's time for Carolina football with our friend Keith Allsep, host of the Locked On the Gamecocks podcast today about 1:30. We'll get into the Braves. Auburn got some bad news yesterday in football. And the coaches poll came out. We were all, we kind of talked about it yesterday. Everybody's focused on the top 4 or 5. It's seemingly the same top 4 or 5 every year. But how would we view preseason polls if the college football playoff was implemented now at 12 teams? How would we look at the preseason polls versus how we look at them now? How many teams, when you look at the poll now, do you say they have a chance to be there at the end of the year versus how many teams would you be saying that about if the college football playoff was 12 teams? So we're going to get into some of that and look at the last couple of before and after polls, if you want to call them that way, last 2 seasons. And some interesting little nuggets passed along in there, so you'll like that conversation. But first of all, good afternoon, Darren Goldwater.
Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to DJ Uiagalelei, believed to be the first college athlete with a national television campaign. He signs with Dr. Pepper, and as Christy Dosh, Sports Biz Miss on Twitter points out, Clemson is hurt by the state of South Carolina's law, which prohibits the use of Clemson's logo in this campaign. Other states, other schools, if it was their quarterback, could have their logo plastered. But this is the picture from the ad right there. There's no Clemson logo. You can't see, but you can't quite see it. So the state of South Carolina is hurting itself with their law right here.
How? How
hurting
what
Clemson.
but no, but how are they hurting Clemson? I'm not sure. They're a national brand right now, so how's it hurting them?
Wouldn't it be beneficial if they're tied to a national campaign that they're not paying for that's worth millions and millions of dollars?
But it's their logo. So if they want to have a national campaign, just invest in a national campaign. It's up to them.
Well, sure.
I mean, this is about name, image, and likeness, right? Name, image, and likeness has nothing to do with that Clemson Tiger paw or the Gamecock logo or the Citadel logo.
It does.
I don't buy any of that. I think it's a bunch of crap. The NFL has the same policy in place. Aaron Rodgers can't just put a Packers jersey on.
He cannot have the logo in this campaign because of the state of South Carolina's law. Or if law might be the wrong word right there, but how they're allowing NIL to be implemented right now, you can't use the Clemson logo. This is not Clemson's choice.
Okay, but so if we hire Aaron Rodgers to create a national commercial endorsing our show, can he put his Packers jersey on?
I'm not sure.
He cannot. I know that answer. He can't do that because it's not his. We're hiring Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, cool.
So does that hurt the Packers?
In this instance of college athletics, when you can benefit and it is all about money and it is about your brand, you want your brand out there as much as possible.
Then put it out there. But this is about name, image, and likeness. We have to separate these two.
Then you can, but you can tie them together too. Because in this campaign, which will be a multi-million-dollar campaign run by Dr. Pepper,
sure,
Clemson wouldn't be spending and is not spending a penny. But wouldn't it be nice to get the value from that campaign without spending a penny?
Right, but I mean that doesn't make any of this unfair. Laws are laws.
I don't think it's unfair. I think it's unfortunate for Clemson.
I mean,
you'll see it pop up. We'll see more national campaigns, and we'll see the logo of that player in those campaigns, but not in this one.
Well, they hired, again, whether the law was in place or not, they hired DJ Uiagalelei, not Clemson. So if they wanted to do a Fansville commercial about Clemson, they could have gone to the school and done something with Clemson.
Sure.
They hired the athlete, right?
I don't think you understand what I'm saying. Yeah, of course. Dr. Pepper can do whatever they want. Clemson can do whatever they want. Dr. Pepper chose to give money to the Clemson quarterback because of the Clemson brand and who is leading the Clemson brand and who will be a Heisman Trophy candidate.
Right.
Dr. Pepper chose to put their money into that.
Okay.
If the state were to allow Clemson to slap their logo on this, Clemson would benefit from that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I don't know that they would or wouldn't. I mean, I'm not sure exactly how that would benefit Clemson, but
because it's a multi-million-dollar campaign that you're not paying for.
So
you get the exposure from.
So what we're saying is because people would see the Clemson logo and then everybody would just start supporting Clemson across the country, or they'd show up.
It's the same as any marketing campaign. Just because I see a Dr. Pepper ad doesn't mean I'm going to go drink Dr. Pepper.
Right.
But if it's a multi-million-dollar ad campaign, it's about exposure. It's about marketing. It's about getting out there. This is about DJ. It is not about Clemson. But if Clemson could tag along, it would be beneficial to Clemson.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I guess if the NFL could tag along or the Patriots could tag along, Gatorade would be beneficial to them since they have Tom Brady in their commercials, or State Farm would be beneficial to the NFL or the Green Bay Packers since they hire Aaron Rodgers, but they don't have any use of the intellectual property of the Green Bay Packers or the NFL. So, I mean, the state, I actually like the state law because it forces those who want to do business with Clemson University or the University of South Carolina or the Citadel or Coastal or whomever it is to go do business with those schools instead of just being able to put all their money into just one pot. I'm thinking about this from a dollars and cents standpoint.
That's a different, yeah. So I see where you're coming at it from. I don't think it will pull enough from that will matter. I like what Tyler just said. Kind of looks like a Syracuse guy, right? So that while if you're a fan of college football, you know exactly who this guy is in this ad campaign. Exactly who he is. But if you're not, if you're a casual fan, I think if you're a fan of college football, you know who the quarterback at Clemson is. But if you're a casual sports fan, then maybe not. If you're not a sports fan and you see a Dr. Pepper commercial, wouldn't it be nice to know who that orange jersey belongs to? To us, it's obvious.
Mhm.
But it would benefit Clemson if they're able just simply to tag along where they're not.
Yeah, I got a question here, too. The question is, does Dr. Pepper want to pay Clemson for the use of that logo? They can absolutely do that, but they'd be doing business with Clemson. They cannot pay Clemson for the use of that logo in a name, image, and likeness deal with DJ Uiagalelei. That's exactly what Darren is saying here, as that state law prohibits intellectual property of these institutions being used by their athletes in any type of name, image, and likeness campaign, which again doesn't bother it doesn't bother me because the property is not the use of the players. So the law doesn't bother me at all. I'm not arguing with you necessarily. I'm arguing the premises of the point. Is I saw it also on Twitter, which, by the way, for anybody that may be a little confused on this too, there's a little bit of a let's slide this information there because this was kind of slipped in about a month ago if anybody happened to miss it. So theoretically, if we were thinking about this from a law standpoint, period, the end, when is the law effective, when is it not, none of this crap would matter. It would actually be on Clemson over everything. That would supersede everybody because the law that it was written was not supposed to take place until July 1st of 2022. So by that, this would be all on Clemson. It would have nothing to do with the state of South Carolina because Clemson wrote into their bylaws, you as an athlete here cannot use our intellectual property. And that was written before the July 1st of this past year came along, which is an important date because in that original law that was written, Attorney General Alan Wilson had the authority to go in and basically supersede the effective date backwards, which he did. So the law, which was supposed to go into play next year on July 1st, 2022, became effective in South Carolina basically immediately, July 1st of this year, which is why Christy Dosh, she's with Forbes, I think, her reporting on that is absolutely correct. The law is in place, although it was written for next year. The Attorney General moved it up. But had that not happened, this conversation would be about why Clemson is not allowing the player, DJ Uiagalelei, to use their intellectual property, which is the logo in this case. Whereas the bylaws at South Carolina, I know these two, I don't know others in the state, but at South Carolina, in their bylaws, you can use their intellectual property. They have no problem with that. But state law says that you can't. So if they ever adjust state law or write an amendment to the law or whatever it is, the Gamecocks have cleared that already through their program. Clemson, though, has not.
If that law were to change,
if the law were to change,
right, and then Carolina would be able to benefit from that if the law were to change,
right, yeah. Carolina's already set up for it. Clemson, it would just be changing the language. I mean, it's not like they got to do a whole lot. But and then you have to write for permission to be able to utilize that intellectual property in a third-party campaign, which in this case, a third party would be the player, although the player does play for that logo or whatever school it may be. That is still the third party because it would not be a direct tie-in between the owner of the property and those who are trying to use it, which in this case is Dr. Pepper. So I'm not an attorney, kind of some confusing language. I get it. We're all getting a little bit used to this. I just, it doesn't matter to me. This was all about name, image, and likeness, and DJ Uiagalelei owns the name, image, and likeness rights to DJ Uiagalelei, and state law says he can't use Clemson, but you know what he can use? His own brand. If he wants to come up with his own logo and whatever he wants to do, he can do that all damn day and pop it on an orange jersey and have at it, pal. I'd like to know how much money he's making on this.
It's probably a pretty sizable deal. I have not seen that. I saw this, minutes before the show. So I haven't seen the actual financial details in it. But
I don't know if they're out. I don't know if they've released them.
If they have, it's been within the last hour or so. But I certainly haven't seen. Look, it's Dr. Pepper. It's a national TV commercial. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
R.I.P. Larry Culpepper. I liked Larry Culpepper. Why did they do away with Larry Culpepper?
Who's Larry Culpepper?
Larry, he was the star of Fansville when they first started Fansville. Like, I don't even know what that was. 7 years ago, 7 years ago.
To me, DJ is going to be a much more marketable brand for Dr. Pepper than that guy who I just said. Who's that guy?
DJ Culpepper. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. But it is neat. So he's got Bojangles and he's got Dr. Pepper.
Oh, solid lunch.
Yeah, and then you got Derek King. But I look, he signed a bunch of deals. I don't know of any athlete out there that has two brands bigger than this that we know of just yet. I mean, there's some other stuff going on, but you're talking about Dr. Pepper. I mean, this is
right. And the fact that to this point, I don't think there is another national commercial tie-in with NIL. There's a ton of local, ton of regional. Like Bojangles is more regional than it would be local, but not national. There will be more. There'll be more.
Yeah,
we know of.
I think so. I think what will happen is you're going to get a lot of once the season starts, Aaron. Probably once you get about halfway through it, and you start to see guys who are going to be in a Heisman race or in a race for a national championship, and you're the star of the team. That's when you'll probably see one or two of these things pop. Maybe Bryce Young or JT Daniels, or even another one for DJ Uiagalelei or whomever it may be. I don't know. But, when it might be somebody you're getting into the season, something that has something to do with Coca-Cola, because Coca-Cola always does the Bears drinking the Cokes and stuff like that. And if you're going to be getting through Christmas and into a college football playoff, and Bryce Young's the star of Alabama and they're number one in the country, he might be a pretty good guy to sell Coke products around that time of the year. So I think success is certainly going to determine some of this, and I'm sure there's a lot of specifically national advertisers who do have the cash for this, who are probably going to wait and see where they could truly tie some big bucks to name, image, and likeness that's successful in the sport. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not saying Uiagalelei isn't successful. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying those who are holding off on their cash are probably waiting to kind of see how some folks out there perform before they just start. I mean, because what you don't want is, God forbid, and I would never wish this on anybody, DJ Uiagalelei go in there and get hurt in game one.
Well, Quinn Ewers, the high school quarterback in Texas who reclassified. Now he's already, I'm not sure if he's up there yet. He's expected this week or next at Ohio State's practice, but he will enroll early. He is eligible. He's already got an NIL deal in place. So who knows how he's going to, you've never seen this kid on a college campus before, let alone what if he doesn't perform well and gets hurt or doesn't even get on the field this year.
I know. And he's the number one prospect in the country. So, it's hard to imagine the top ranked quarterback in the country, specifically. I mean, from a performance standpoint, I think we all probably expect he's going to do something. From a marketing standpoint, that's what it's all about. Like, I mean, Darren, you've been in sports for over 20 years. We understand marketing. And it's not necessarily about tying it to them, even though I was just talking about success a minute ago. It's not just necessarily just all about tying it to success. It's marketability. So, like, if you could trust Johnny Manziel, he would have been a pretty good NIL guy because he was marketable. Jamarcus Russell at one point in time was the top player in the country, goes to LSU. I know that he had a pretty terrible pro career, and it was kind of an up and down college career. But he was a very marketable guy, So when you talk about someone like Quinn Ewers, is it Ewers or Ewers?
I think I've heard it both ways. I believe it's Ewers, like Y-O-U, I believe.
Okay, all right.
Either way.
What it comes down to is he marketable or not? I mean, that's what it comes down to, and success is certainly going to help that. But, is he a marketable guy? So, or gal, or whatever it is. But No, I think that I think he will be. I when I saw the Ewer stuff, just the tie-in to Ohio State, I could not help but think about Tate Martell, who I think now is at UNLV. He's on like his 30th school in 3 years or 4 years.
As a quote athlete, I believe, not a quarterback. He's an athlete now.
Yeah, I know. Look, man, you suck, but we'll take you. And I think he's a walk-on or something. But,
yeah, he's walking on his whatever.
But like, if you go back to when he was going to school, like he at the time would have been a very marketable kid, and then he probably would have cost you a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be careful with some of this stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
12:20 on this Wednesday afternoon. I have no idea how we got that far in the weeds on that, but
yeah, because I just jumped right into it, and there we went.
Well, oh yeah, no, I don't mean like that. I just, I see it differently. Like I understand why somebody might think that the state law, which is a state law, is costing Clemson, but I don't think it's costing Clemson at all. Clemson can help themselves any way they want to. So it's helping DJ Uiagalelei, and I think that's, to me, this is what it comes down to. What would really help DJ Uiagalelei is if they win another national championship. Well, I think we can all agree on that. The preseason coaches poll came out yesterday, and Clemson is number 2 right there behind Alabama. By the way, you talk about marketable quarterbacks, Bryce Young, DJ Uiagalelei, and how about Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma? Haven't heard anything about him yet.
I liked his logo. It was snake related, as it should be, but I haven't seen a deal that he has signed yet. To be honest, I haven't paid attention as closely as I thought, but it hasn't been thrown in our face as much as I figured it would be, because all of a sudden Texas and Oklahoma happened, and
yeah,
that's what's been going on.
What an offseason. God, it can't end fast enough. The top 12. This is the top 12. Why am I giving you the top 12? Because in a few years, that's probably what's going to matter at the end of the season. Bama, Clemson, Oklahoma. We went over this yesterday. Ohio State. Those are your top 4. Georgia, A&M, Notre Dame, Iowa State, North Carolina, Cincinnati, Florida, and Oregon. The preseason top 12. So when you look at the poll, I'm literally asking. I think everybody probably looks at it about the same today, but when you look at the preseason coaches poll, the first thing I'm assuming that you look for is Penn State in there, and where are they?
Yeah,
because you're a Penn State fan.
Yeah.
But when it comes nationally to, okay, I want to pay attention to the poll, like what do you focus on first?
Honestly, it's a larger snapshot, because I expect what I expect at the top. And okay. I know that group, however they're going to be ranked, and it doesn't matter in my head because it's 4 weeks out, but that group's going to be there. And then just kind of a snapshot of 5 through 15 is really what I'm looking at. And if there are surprise teams in there that aren't typically one of your top 15 teams through the season.
Very fair. And I think that kind of plays right into where I was going with this, because if you, like, I'm with you. I think at least the last 4 or 5 years, maybe a little bit longer than that, but certainly the last 4 or 5 in the playoff era, we've gotten used to the top 5 or 6 teams for the most part being about the same. And then to your point, who are the fringe programs that at the end of the year might be able to knock on that door, kick it through, be a surprise team in the college football playoff? Mm-hmm. So if we had a 12-team playoff, how would we look at the preseason poll is the question. And I think if you had a 12-team playoff, you'd be pretty focused on 1 through 25, because if, like, here's my example, and we're going to do more of this probably at the top of the 1 o'clock hour, since we won't have a ton of time here. But the preseason poll in 2020, last year, which I get it, COVID year, but I also have the 19 as well. Clemson, Ohio State, Bama, Georgia, Oklahoma, top 5 in that order. LSU, Penn State, Florida, Oregon, Notre Dame round out the top 10, and then Auburn and Wisconsin. So those are your top 12 last year. The top 12 postseason after conference championship games in 2020, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Notre Dame, right? That's who made up the playoff. And then A&M, Oklahoma, Florida,
Mhm.
Cincinnati, Georgia, Iowa State, Indiana, Coastal would have been in there last year, having to play Texas A&M in a 5-12 matchup. So as for the top four, 3 of the preseason top 4 were in there at the end of the year. Bama, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia was on the outside looking in. Notre Dame was the 4th team. But then 5 teams would have made a 12-team playoff last year, Darren, that weren't in the preseason top 12. 5 teams. That would have been Coastal,
Cincinnati,
Indiana, Cincinnati, Iowa State, and Texas A&M. Okay? So those 5 teams would have been in. LSU, Penn State, Oregon, Auburn, and Wisconsin, they would have been out. So, and then we've got the 2019 stuff, and we'll get into that coming up at the top of the 1 o'clock hour. But my point is, on top of, or kind of meshing this with a couple of comments that were made yesterday, Paul Feinbaum, talking to Mike Greenberg, said expansion is going to save college football from itself. Because of what you just said a minute ago. It's the same. We talk about this all the time. I mean, Mike Greenberg even said in that conversation, I could have told you 3 years ago who the top 4 would be in the preseason coaches poll this year. 3 years ago, which is exactly true. And then Dan Patrick on his show, and I think he's exactly right, he said college football is so predictable, at least at the top. It's so predictable. That's not the case in the NFL. I think, there's some things you could always predict. If Tom Brady's playing, they're probably going to have a chance to win it. But then outside of that, there are teams that you expect to be pretty good in the NFL, but it is much more unpredictable than college football is. What makes college football so great is the traditions and the rivalries and all those type things. But in the playoff era, we've gotten to this point where it's the same old. And how long is the sport going to accommodate that? I mean, the fans, how long are we going to pay attention to watching Clemson, Ohio State, and Alabama every single year? And it doesn't mean that in the short term, maybe in the long term, and that's what I believe, in the long term, this will be true, that an expanded playoff will create more parity. In the short term, it won't. The best teams are still going to beat all these other teams. Like, you can't convince me that this past year that Coastal Carolina was going to go beat A&M if they had to play in a 12-5 matchup or something like that. It wasn't going to happen. But like in the long term, there will be, you'll see upsets, you'll see a little bit more parity, the transfer portal. Oh man, Cincinnati's been in the playoff 3 straight years. I think I might go there, and things like that. And I do think that some things will level out in the short term. That's not going to happen. You're going to see the same teams. But the point is, with an expanded playoff, and all of a sudden, Cincinnati, Indiana, Iowa State, they're in a playoff. What? When the hell were we ever talking about them being in a playoffs? So it's going to interject some type of fresh blood into it. We got to circulate the blood, but it'll interject it at least, Darren, and that's a start to not have a stale top of the sport.
I am in a minority here. I know that I'm in a minority where I'm going. I've started to really embrace and look forward to the point when whatever the group is separates itself. Because that's the playoff I want to see. I don't want the group of 5 included. I don't want those who really don't have a punch. This isn't basketball. It's not baseball. You really don't have a puncher's chance if you're playing with the budget of a group of 5 and you're going up against the budget of the SEC or the Big Ten or the ACC or whatever's going to become of the Pac-12, Big 12. I'm looking forward to that breaking away and setting a new standard of not just competitiveness, but then depth. Because if the playoff is larger, and it will be, whatever it's going to look like, and you're only including the power of the power, the idea of this NFL-ish college football, I've started to come around. I know I'm in the minority, right? In the pageantry of it, but I like good content. That's what I want. I want good content. When I watched baseball in the Olympics, it was hard to watch. It was not the content I'm expecting. when I watch baseball. When I flip on a mid-level college football game, it's not the same as when I flip on a Big Ten or an SEC game. That's the standard I want in my postseasons. I'm looking forward to when that happens.
Yeah, I mean, they like, what's not going to happen here is I heard somebody, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and I know we got to go to break, but somebody was saying the other day, but dude, you're not going to replace Alabama. This is what he said to me. You're not going to replace Alabama or Clemson or Ohio State. Like, a 12-team playoff is only going to keep them in there, which is, for the most part, is true. It wouldn't have kept Alabama in there in 2019, just as an FYI. They would have been on the outside looking in. There will be those years, but like consistently, those teams are going to be in there. I'm like, oh, no. I know that. Like, I know that. It is college football's job to beat them, to catch up to them and beat them. Like, this can't be we have to give everybody a trophy. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. Like, and I know that's not what you're saying. All I'm saying is we got to get fresh blood in here to at least provide an opportunity of this to happen. Because right now, it's not happening. And these teams, Clemson's not going anywhere. Bama's not going anywhere. They might be 1, 2, 3, 4 for the next 6 years. But 1 year it'll happen where somebody knocks off number 1 Alabama, and you're going, oh my God, how did that happen? You know, but that's what'll keep it moving. I'm not saying it's going to happen every year. It's not going to happen every year. There's going to be some years where chalk is going to win their way right on through. Same old. Absolutely. No doubt. But it might happen once. It probably will. That's just the way things go. Clemson might get knocked off by Iowa State 1 year in a playoff in 2030. But that's what sports, certainly, you know, that's what drives us. And that's what we like to see. But then guess what? Clemson will be back next year and they'll be ranked number 1 again. That's the way it works.
It's kind of what they're expecting this year, right?
Carolina fans are going, you got to be freaking kidding me.
Just describe what happened at the end of last year to Clemson, and now they're coming back this year. And
that's right.
You're right back.
Those teams aren't going anywhere. It's South Carolina's job to get their way into the conversation. Yes, an expanded playoff is going to help the sport. I think it's definitely going to help the sport. But like, it's still your job to get better. And when you get in there, don't get your ass beat. You know, so we're going to talk more about it. I'm going to bring 2019 into the equation here. There's a similarity that you'll certainly want to hear about between 2020 and 2019 pre and post seasons. So we'll hold off on that. But coming up next, Hale McGranahan in place of J.C. Sherbert from the Big Spur right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road with exciting news. It's springtime and we're playing ball. Most dealerships don't have any inventory, but at Stokes Volkswagen we do. So we're playing ball on every new Volkswagen in stock. Every new Volkswagen available with 0 down. Qualified buyers can sign and drive with interest-free financing for 60 months. Remember, Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road is the fastest, easiest way to sell your car and get the most money for your trade. Plus, we'll take any trade in any condition, paid off or not. Is your credit in a slump?
Strike 2.
If you've got $500 down and you make at least $2,000 per month, our lenders can get you approved. So if you want to strike out, that's okay. But if you want to hit a home run and save on a new Volkswagen, come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road or StokesVW.com.
$1,666 per month per $1,000 borrowed for 60 months at 0% APR with 0 down. Plus tax tag. Includes $499.50 administration fee. Subject to BCI credit approval. Expires month end.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Shrimping season's back. That means local caught shrimp. That's right, local caught shrimp back on the menu at the Dog and Duck. All 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road, now featuring once again local caught hand-breaded shrimp, plus other daily specials like the Game Day Burger every Wednesday, Rib Night on Friday, rotating taps all the time, and all the TVs you can possibly imagine for whatever you want to watch. The Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
Ladies
stations are tuned in too.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
All right, 12:35. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com. JB, Darren, and Hale McGranahan. Hale, yes, we're getting closer to football. No JC today. He will be back with us probably next week. He's been traveling. I think Hale and John and all those guys saw him yesterday. Did you see JC yesterday, Hale?
I put eyes on JC Sherbert in the flesh.
Wow. So he is real. How thin did he look?
Next question.
Was he walking around in some contraption that hid all light from him, so he was just a shadow like he would be if he was on the show?
That's correct.
You don't have to protect your paycheck with us, Hale. We'll protect you. You can say what's on your mind, man. Go ahead.
Are other people listening right now? Am I okay to speak freely?
According to my family, nobody listens to this show.
Oh yeah, JC was doing well. It was good to see him in person. I'd seen him in person in probably early 2020 before the pandemic really got jumping, or maybe it might have been 2019. I don't know. It's all kind of running together, but yeah, it was a nice warm morning over at the McNair family football practice area, or whatever the actual title is, where the team works out. But yeah, it was good to have JC and John Woodall and John Del Bianco and Ryan Bethea out there taking pictures. We had a full five. We could have played somebody in basketball if they wanted to yesterday.
Probably wouldn't have ended well, but you could have certainly done that. Yeah. All right. So the Gamecocks are off today. This is their first off day since practice has actually begun, as they inch their way towards the football season. Go ahead and give me summarize your observations over the last few days. I feel like yesterday was the most extensive time that the media has had to or been able to spend on the field, just kind of getting eyes on folks and things like that. So kind of rattle off what you've seen out there at the practice facility.
Yeah, I tell you what, it was amazing. The sun actually came up today because we got to see full 11-on-11 South Carolina Gamecocks playing against South Carolina Gamecocks in a practice where passes were thrown, completed, kind of tackles were made, but not really because they're not in full pads, so they're not going to go to the ground anyway. But yeah, it was a nice surprise to see the first team offense going against the first team defense, and Luke Doty throwing the ball to Carryon Joyner and Jaheim Bell, and the second team being led by Jason Brown trying to hit Ortre Smith on the first play, and being a little high and coming back and hit him on a quick hitter over the middle. So it was very refreshing to see actual football at a football practice. It was different, but fun and neat and exciting at the same time. It was, wasn't a lot really that you can take away from it because it's, still not full pads and all that. And obviously they're just now through their first week or getting into their first full week of actual practice. So still a lot to be determined for sure, but nice to see, see actual football being played when we're supposedly out of football practice.
Yeah. I mean, it must be nice to actually be able to watch them, like you're saying, and you're not giving any secrets away. You're not throwing the playbook out on Twitter or anything like that. Amazing how that happens.
Yeah, that screen pass to Carryon Joyner, I don't know that anybody could have ever imagined that Marcus Satterfield might call that this year. So
probably not.
He might have just given away the entire playbook there with that one play.
It's over. That's it. But
Saban is scrambling. I mean, I just heard that he just scrambled into his office. Jotted that down.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Yeah. Eastern, you better go ahead and chalk up Eastern Illinois as a loss. It's going to be a long year, boys. They're going to throw 30 screens, and Eastern Illinois is all over all of them. From a physical, and we'll get into a couple more things here, but just broad strokes to kind of start off with you, Hale. From a physicality standpoint, who stands out to you? Maybe somebody or some buddies that you've seen, just hadn't seen them in a few months after summer workouts. I did speak with somebody yesterday who said to kind of lead this off, the defensive line, they look the part again. It looks like South Carolina used to look in the heyday of Spurrier, when they'd roll out a bunch of dudes that you knew they could play. So kind of expand on that from a physicality standpoint. How do they look like compared to their brethren in the SEC?
Yeah. I mean, Mbari has always been a big, good-looking, in shape dude, and certainly no difference there. Or Jordan Strawn, it's hard to believe that a few years ago that guy was a 185-pound safety, but he's now up around 250 and looks good. He talked yesterday with us and said how he was kind of having some trouble in the summer carrying that weight, and sort of what it did to his hamstrings is what he said. I know a lot of South Carolina fans hear me say hamstrings and get real anxious, but he looks good. He really does. Sort of sticking at that edge position, the guy who again we got to speak to after practice was Hot Rod Fitton, and
love that.
He's about 255 now, and man, he looks really good too, just physically. I mean, you would expect 3 years in a college program. He looks like a completely different dude compared to the one that I saw coming out of high school. So just along those lines, yeah. I think Muhammad Kaba continues to get better from just on the hoof standpoint. He was kind of a streamlined type of linebacker coming out of high school, but I think he's continuing to put on the right kind of size and look the part of a guy who could be someone who starts to make some noise at that position as well. I'll tell you what, just kind of not a random observation because we're on the topic, but the guy I saw in June during the high school camps when current players would be out there helping out, who I saw him at first and didn't even really recognize him, was Tyshawn Wanamaker. He is a completely different looking guy. He's much thinner and he's in great shape. And sort of along those lines, another one is Rick Sandage, who's a little heavier, maybe kind of, I don't want to say sloppy in some ways because I think that would be a misrepresentation, but I think he's another guy who's just, again, in much better shape. And he talked about that as well, how even his mom and dad told him he doesn't look fat anymore. So just another guy that seems to have done some good things here with this new strength and conditioning program.
Yeah, the strength program has definitely stood out, and I think that folks need to be probably a little bit more fair to the conversation as far as this team's strength goes. I know that Shane a couple of months ago mentioned that last summer was just a bad year when it comes to strength and conditioning and things like that, but he wasn't necessarily calling out the strength staff last year. He was also talking about the fact that there was COVID going on, and guys just couldn't be as engaged as they are now. And here we are about to start the season, and things seem to be headed in a different direction. I want to ask you about Jamar Brown's, because speaking of strength, this guy looks like oh my God, he looks like a robot. Jamar Brown's comments yesterday, and they weren't just tongue in cheek or just off the cuff. Yeah, no one's gonna be able to figure out this defense. Just kind of talking. He was asked about the defense, and he literally emphatically says, no one's going to be able to figure out this defense. What does he mean by that? Nobody's going to be able to figure out this defense.
I don't know. That might have just been a little bit of excitement coming out. I think he and a lot of other guys are just genuinely excited about the change, particularly on that side of the ball at the top with the defensive coordinator. I think it's refreshing in a lot of ways for these guys that there is a new voice in that position, and I think a lot of these guys are really happy with who their defensive coordinator is right now, and head coach for that matter. But I get the sense, especially from the linebackers, the guys who are coached by Clayton White, I think like they genuinely really like the guy, and it sounds like they believe in what he's going to have them doing. Whether that all comes together and looks like people think and hope and want it to look like, we'll see. But I really do think that these guys are buying in and believing in what this defense could look like under Clayton White. Because whether it's Muhammad Kaba or Jamar Brown or Brad Johnson, they've all raved, and they're not going to say bad things about their coach, but they've all raved about the guy. They really like him.
Well, Hale, one of the things that was a pretty big talking point last year, at least in the smaller circles of Gamecock football, was, especially at the end of the year, was they got to, and we heard it throughout the season. Nobody ever really knew what it meant. Was they got to simplify. They got to simplify. They got to simplify. That's all we kept hearing. And now we're hearing players saying, "Well, this is a complicated defense." So, I mean, I get it. Like there's simplify, complicated. It all depends on actually what you're talking about as it pertains to defense, scheme, play calling, rotation. I mean, there's so much that goes into this. I get it. But the common fan, which we all probably are for the most part, here's simplify the defense, and then here's it's a complicated defense. That might make them a little nervous. So how would you decipher those comments? Or different?
That's a good question. That's tough to do because I think sometimes those types of words just get thrown out there just because they sound good and they're kind of cliche in some ways. So and it's hard for me to answer that, with a good answer because I'm not some like schematic guru. Like I know a little bit, but it's not a lot, and certainly not enough to be able to sit here and give a good answer. And people like oh, that's really insightful about X's and O's when it comes to Clayton White's defense. But I just think in a lot of ways, again, it's the new voice calling the defense, and there's a buy-in from the coach. Like that's a big part too. Like coaches ask players to buy in. But at some point, if the coach is asking you to buy in and he ain't bought in, like it's kind of tough to want to listen to that. So I think that's kind of a big thing for those guys on that defensive side of the ball when it comes to their coordinator.
12:47 on this Wednesday afternoon. Has there been a trend, Hale, early in camp to give some of the older guys maybe give them a little bit of a nod, seeing them out there on the first team defense? I'm going to be specific here. I'm not saying that Aaron Sterling isn't a good football player. He led the team in sacks 2 years ago, and he's been around since 1947. But Jordan Burch is a pretty good player. And it's really hard for me to envision that Jordan Burch and J.J. Anigbare probably won't be starting opposite each other at defensive end. But lately, it's been Sterling out there, and a bunch of other older guys have been on the field first. Has that been a trend? Are those the best players? Do you have a feel for that yet?
It's probably in some ways a little bit of both. I mean, for Aaron Sterling specifically, I mean, he's one of the toughest, hardest working guys on the team. I mean, Shane Beamer mentioned him last week as someone who had a really good summer. And Aaron Sterling has always been a guy in this program who's well respected and thought very highly of, not only by the coaches but by his teammates as well. I mean, he if he's a starter in the opener and the 11 games after that, it'll be because he's earned it, and I'm sure he'll play to a pretty solid level too. I mean, we've seen it for 4 years basically out of him. With defensive linemen, everybody wants to start, but there are going to be a lot of guys who play. I mean, you're going to look at 4, maybe 5 defensive ends, bucks, edge guys, whatever you want to call them, who are probably going to play over the course of the game, whether it's Aaron Sterling and Barre, Jordan Burch, Hot Rod Fitton, Jordan Strawn, like all those guys are going to play in some ways, and it'll be in some type of a rotation. And of course the same inside at tackle. It's one of those things where, everybody wants to start, but everybody's going to play too. And just because you're not the starter, doesn't mean you can't be that guy who's, third, fourth quarter in crunch time or on a big third down. If you're on the field for those plays, I think those are a little more important than whatever the first play of the game is.
Mm-hmm. Am I correct? This coming weekend, will that be that's the first scrimmage of camp, right? Saturday?
Yes, on Saturday. I think it's at like 3:15, 3:30, somewhere in there is when it starts.
So generally they kind of get to this first. I mean, this is a new staff, so we don't really know necessarily with Shane and his guys, but generally coaches try to get to that first scrimmage. They evaluate the tape. Then they make a couple of adjustments after that as far as who's going to be doing what in practice on what teams and this, that, and the other. And then Hale, you start to get into about 10, 11 days till game day, and they start kind of clamping down and focusing on that week one opponent. So the timeline's shrinking a little bit. We'll probably know a little bit more by this time next week. But on offense, I think what's been so intriguing about the offseason offensively, and I know we've talked a lot to you about this, is our minds and imaginations have been able to run wild a little bit, right? Like if you are or if you aren't a South Carolina fan, if you're a fan of football, it's like we have this big blank canvas and we're envisioning all sorts of things. Nobody really knows how the painting's going to turn out because of everything we've heard. Oklahoma and LSU and Tom Brady and John Brady and Frank Brady and Troy Brady and, Bill Parcells and God knows who else. But in watching practice, this is a pretty basic question with a complicated answer. We hear all these great feels and terms about what this offense is trying to be, but do they have the personnel to be it?
Well, they'll need at least a couple receivers to be able to step up and do things with some consistency. That's an important part. Of course, the quarterback is even more important part.
Oh yeah, he's pretty important.
I think so though, Jamie, is you got a stable of running backs. Kevin Harris, whenever he's back fully healthy and doing his thing, Marshawn Lloyd is unproven at the college level, but he's looking pretty good to me yesterday. He's got a knee brace on, but saw a little bit of a burst from him that is kind of the guy you expect.
Yeah. What does that look like, Hale? Like, you've been evaluating players? How do you you're one of those guys. You can look at a guy and you go, yeah, he just looks different. What does that look like?
I mean, Marshawn Lloyd's pretty close to it if you just try to personify it. Like, you watch his highlights and see some of his best plays, and you're like, okay, that's it. Like, it's a very simple way to say it, but I mean, it's hard to describe. I mean, the best way for me is to be like, if anybody who's watching the game, whether that's you, me, or your wife or my fiance, if they're watching the game, they say, "Oh, he's really good." Like, yeah, it's pretty obvious. Like, it's pretty obvious what good looks like at running back in particular. And I think he's a not the tallest guy in the world, but he's sturdy. Like, he doesn't look small, but he's 5'8", 5'9", and he's just fast. Like, you can just see a little burst from him that if you line up 10, 11 guys after him, Zaquandre Wright might have it. A couple other guys on the team might have it, but there are not a lot of guys who have that. Maybe that's kind of a indictment on where things are at right now from a talent standpoint on this team. But he's pretty special, and I think he's getting close to having a good start to his career. I really do. I guess my biggest question is what's going to be on that left knee? Is it going to be braced up? He seems, in the brief flashes that I've seen in person, he seems pretty comfortable with it as far as starting and stopping and, showing that burst. He seems like the guy who's what we sort of thought he was going to be, 12, 13 months ago.
I kind of equate it a little bit. I was watching an interview with Josh Lewin, who's been a play-by-play guy forever. He said, I get this question, like, how do you decide if a foul ball is peeled to the right, if it curves to the right, if it breaks off to the right? It's just, when you see it enough, you know, right? So when you see that burst, you're like, that was different than the other dude. When you see that peel off, that's different than it curved because it was like a foot left or something like that.
Yeah. Well, you're sitting there with John Whittle, Hale, and I would venture a guess. I'm probably pretty similar to John in this instance from a baseball standpoint. You can close your eyes and listen to BP, and you know who's swinging it well and who isn't. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just envisioning here that Hale McGranahan, this elite talent expert, probably can close his eyes and hear the footsteps, and he knows who's good and who isn't. So I poked around a little bit yesterday, Hale, and I said, look, this individual I was talking to, we all know where the problem is, and that's been at wide receiver. And he said, yeah, but, quote, Jalen Brooks and Dakereon Joyner, they're ready. How did Jalen Brooks and Dakereon Joyner look to you?
Didn't see much specifically yesterday with Jalen. Watched Dakereon, catching punts or kickoffs, I guess they were. Saw him moving around a little bit that way. Some catch a screen pass, I think, in that 11-on-11 stuff. He seems to be a little more sure of himself catching the ball, too. I think it's pretty apparent that he's put in a lot of time at working on his hands and trying to make that a more natural act or motion for him. I think he's really come a long way in that regard, at least in just a little bit that I've seen. Of course, doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot until you're doing it in traffic. When quote unquote the live bullets are flying, it's very different there. And I think that sort of applies to Jalen Brooks as well. Like he didn't have a problem running past people and getting open and putting himself in position to make catches. But that's the big thing. That was a big thing for him last year was actually making that very important part of the entire play when it comes to playing receiver is receiving the ball.
Catching.
Guys, confidence wise, just it's a confidence thing. Like Jalen Brooks going into last season, playing, not playing, playing. Now he's playing, or not playing, but now he's playing. We know for sure he's playing, and it's 2 days before you got to go to Baton Rouge and play against LSU and do it on ESPN. So go get him, bud.
Yeah.
Then he drops his first pass, and it's all downhill from there. I think a big thing to all that, and I should have started by saying this, is Justin Stepp and the way he coaches the actual fundamentals of catching a football. That really, from what I could tell over the last 4 or 5 years, whatever it was, under previous receivers coaches, is those types of things didn't seem to be stressed all that much. Just the very looking at the ball, catching it, tucking it, and just like being very deliberate about that entire process was something that I don't think was really around up until about January, February of this year.
Wow.
So I think again that most important part of the position, which sounds really like goofy and simple to say, but just catching the ball, I think that's going to be a much improved area for this team, especially at that wide receiver position.
It's amazing. These kids playing the SEC and they just couldn't catch the football. That's just amazing. I had when I was a catcher in baseball, and I had a best coach I ever had. Asked me one time, he said, what do you think the most important part about being a catcher is? I said, managing the game. He goes, no, catching it, stupid. Catch the ball. I mean, it's kind of, you would think like you're a receiver, the most important part is when they throw it to you, catch it. But
that's the thing, JB. Under Brian McClendon and Joe Cox, and I'm sorry to cut you off.
No.
They would start each practice or before each game, like the very first thing those receivers would do when they get on the field is make one-handed catches. That seems kind of counterproductive to me. Yeah, there are times in a game when you want to maybe try to sneak one hand out there and reel it in, but the other 98% of the time you're trying to use both hands. So it just seemed a little odd to me.
It's
always did.
Yeah. Well, we don't have to go too deep down that road as to why those guys aren't here anymore. Good guys, but certainly could question some of those decisions. All right, final quick one here, 30 seconds. Of the players you've seen on offense, we know the big names, Marshawn and Kevin and guys like that. Who's the wild card? Who's the wild card that you early in camp you think, okay, that guy, he could have a big year offensively for Carolina?
I'm going to stick with Jaheim Bell. That was a guy that I heard about pretty early on in the spring about all the different things he was doing, and the kind of comparison that was thrown out there was Kyle Juszczyk of the 49ers, the fullback who moves around, lines up in 100 different areas, and will motion to 100 different more, and he'll catch a pass, he'll take a handoff, he'll block, he'll do whatever, and he's going to be out on the field doing a lot. And I think Jaheim Bell is going to be a staple of this offense in a lot of ways, and we certainly saw that in April during the spring game, and I think that's going to continue to be the case moving forward. That's my wild card. He's sort of a Swiss Army knife, if you will. So I think you could, throw out a wild card label on him, since he's going to be doing a couple of different things and functioning in a variety of ways that could give opposing defenses some problems.
Including lining up in the backfield. For those who might wonder what I'm talking about, go look at some old tape, not old, last year, whenever, the tape of Oklahoma and how many times they put two backs lined up in the shotgun and an offensive set and what those guys do. You'll see some of what they've probably been talking about here in fall practice. Thank God it's not spring. Hale, we'll let you run. We know that you and John are on a secret mission for the Big Spur, and we'll be monitoring the website later on for a report on that mission. I think you're just covering recruiting, aren't you?
We're in the Atlanta area, going to see a couple of guys who are big time recruits for South Carolina, one from the 2022 class and one from the 2023 class. So plenty more to come on those two guys.
Absolutely. Right. That's what the Big Spur is for. Secret mission, JW and HM. HM and JW's secret mission. Hey, man, have a wonderful week. Looking forward to that, and we'll certainly chat with you here very soon. Football season can't get here soon enough. Thanks, Hale.
That's right. Appreciate it, fellas. Thank y'all.
See you. There you go. Hale McGranahan, thebigspur.com. Time for a timeout. When we return, how about those hot Atlanta Braves? Yeah, we'll get into some of that. Auburn with a big loss, personnel-wise. If you haven't heard about it, you're going to. Back into some of this coaches poll, tie into the college football playoff, and then Keith Allsep will pop in at 1:30 in part 7 of our It's Time for Carolina Football series, right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Bourbon and whiskey drinkers of Charleston, Paddock and Whiskey on James Island and the Terrace Shopping Center on Maybank is your home for the finest and rarest bourbon and whiskey drinks in the Lowcountry. This is where I hang out. Go meet my friends Reed and Chris and try one of their exclusive barrel pick bourbons. They have the largest private barrel collection in the state, and let their knowledgeable staff recommend your next pour. PaddockandWhiskey.com. Let not your heart be troubled. Paddock and Whiskey is here for your next double. We're all friends around here. Paddock and Whiskey, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit StonoFerryGolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. StonoFerryGolf.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Clamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the National Anthem.
live, loud, and online.
105, final hour on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back. The JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com. JB and Darren here till 2 o'clock. Keith Allsep ahead. Thanks to Hale McGranahan in that last segment. The reliable and spacious Atlas is what Darren and I will drive on our 2021 college football ultimate road trip that we debuted to you yesterday. If you haven't seen it, you should head to StokesVW.com. All the room in the world to pack all the tailgate gear, to pack all the clothes. Don't forget the kids; they'll fit too. Dogs, grandma. You can even put her. You don't even have to put her on the roof like Chevy Chase did. Just put her right there in the car. StokesVW.com. The 2018 to 2021 models right now are priced incredibly well, and we know they're selling really well. So if maybe this is maybe I'm talking to somebody out there who this is the first year you finally get to take the kids to all those football games you've been purchasing season tickets to for all these years. And now it's not just the tailgate gear. It's not just the beer anymore and the chicken wings and, the wife and stuff like that. Now it's, holy crap, we got to take the dinosaur toy and the changing mat and all this other junk. You're going to need something to fit all that. The Stokes, or at Stokes, the Volkswagen Atlas is where you want to go, StokesVW.com. Good news. I have good news, Darren. Breaking news, good news.
I'm in.
The NCAA has finally ruled on Baylor.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, dude, like, why? Who cares? I mean, what? And they're and some of it is just garbage, junk. You can't. Okay, less on-campus visits this month and this week, and I didn't even read all of it. Yeah, if I was Baylor, I'd tell them, you know what? Go to hell. We ain't even worried about it. All those people are gone. None of these people have anything to do with it. Like, none of them. These players, they're
taking so long that when I saw this morning, hey, they're expected to issue a ruling today, I had to think, like, all right, I know it was bad, but I don't remember even much of the specifics. I know it was bad, but it's taken forever. So now who are you handing the punishment down to?
Exactly. I mean, and then they even said, well, technically they didn't really break any rules because, the overall environment was conducive to this at Baylor University. It just wasn't specific to athletics. Then why are you even handing a ruling out? I mean, look, what happened was bad, but none of these people had anything to do with it. I mean, that'd be like punishing me because the guy that lived in the house before me, burned down a church. Well, let me tell you what's going to happen here, boy. You're going to be paying twice the taxes next year. What? I had nothing to do with it. I moved in after he left. So it doesn't make any sense. I just, like you said earlier, there are the NCAA, I will maintain this stance, has some good things about them. The baseball tournament, although I thought they really screwed it up this year with the whole 20. NC State should have hosted a regional, but we can't go through all that again. My head will fall off. But, the basketball, they do run good tournaments, guys. I know they have some problems here and there. I get it. But overall, they run good tournaments. And they've done some really good things for this sport, for all sports, all athletics. But these cases, what were we talking about a couple of weeks ago, Darren? Was it Mark Emmert or had to be somebody else? Maybe it was Greg Sankey who was like, the big thing with the NCAA, we got to speed up these investigations. These things are lasting 3 and 4 years. This is ridiculous.
It has to happen. And then, and we've had the conversations with, well, who's going to police NIL or who's going to police whatever changing landscape and whatever money is going to be coming to these kids? I don't know, because whoever's policing it now is taking forever. So if it takes you 5 years to police who's getting a raw deal and who's taking too much, and he's gone. He's in the NFL already. So,
right.
I mean, these things have to happen with much more sense of urgency.
Right. Yeah. Dude, it's whatever. Good luck to Baylor. Is Art Briles still coaching? Isn't he coaching somewhere?
Didn't
high school?
He ended up in the high school ranks. I'm not sure if he's still there.
Kendall Briles is at Arkansas. So, I don't know. All right, on to baseball we go. Here's some good stuff, at least for me, not for you. But the Braves are a game out of first place. Phillies leading the East. The Mets, so just 2 games back. The Mets have lost 4 in a row. So they got to get that ship righted. Braves 7-3 in their last 10. They've now won a couple in a row. Although the Phillies have really been on a roll, still 8-2 in their last 10 games, even with that loss last night. Adam Duvall hit the home run last night. It's amazing. They've reconstructed the whole outfield. Drew Smiley, by the way, I think he's like 8-3 or something on the year. And he got the win last night. By the way, the loss taken by a member of the Phillies bullpen, Heath Hembry. And I've known Heath a long time, played baseball at South Carolina, and then transferred to play at the College of Charleston.
That's where I remember him, at the college. I don't remember him pitching for the Gamecocks.
Yeah, he was a member of South Carolina's program, and then he actually, I think, if I remember correctly, went to, I want to say Spartanburg Methodist and then to the College of Charleston. But anyways, he's been in the big leagues for a few years, but he took the loss last night. Braves, though, just continue to roll right along. And this is an important series. I know that when we talked to Corey yesterday, yes, the next 9 are on the road, but they're also against very winnable program or organizations. No question. I get it. I think Baltimore and the Marlins are in there. And
yeah.
Somebody else. They can absolutely, they probably can predict they should win maybe all those series, if not 2 of them. But this one's at home, and this is against a really good Cincinnati team. So going on the road sometimes is tough, no matter who you're playing in the big league. So hopefully they can win this series, and a win tonight and a loss tonight by the Phillies, tied for first.
It matters right now
every game,
because you're at the point now where you are actually waking up and checking the standings every day. And I mean, I've been talking about it since day 1 of the season, and you keep saying, well, just talk to me in August. Talk to me. And so I'm talking to you now in August, and it matters to you, and it doesn't matter to me anymore. But now it matters for the Braves because the Phillies are playing the Dodgers right now, and the Dodgers are absolutely loaded, and they're playing some good ball right now. So if the Phillies are going to finally hit the skids after winning like 7 or 8 straight, it matters for the Braves just from a mentality standpoint. Pick up a game or 2. Don't watch the Phillies lose and then wake up and say, damn, we missed an opportunity. So it matters right now. If there's a game at hand to have, go get it. And by the way, speaking of that series up in Philadelphia, that Trey Turner slide last night reminded me of all of the reasons why I love Trey Turner. He's one of the most enjoyable players just to watch play the game. He can fly, and he is so smooth. If you didn't know what I'm talking about, just Google Trey Turner slide, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about last night.
Sweet slide. I thought you were going to say it reminds you of Sid Bream.
Really? I gave you one thing. I said it matters to you and it doesn't matter to me, and you come back with Sid Bream.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah.
And you dig the hole. I get it. I mean, I've piled on for a year and a half, so I get it, but I don't have to like it.
It's only 30 years ago. Well, it's 29 years ago. 29 years ago?
93, right?
What year is this? 28 years ago.
I want to say it's 93.
Okay, so 28 years ago. We're getting close to 30. Once we get to 30 years, we're not talking about it anymore. Brewers lead the Central by 7. Giants ahead of the Dodgers still by 4 out west. Dodgers, of course, stocked up, but San Francisco, we're not going anywhere. We're 31 games above 500 are the Giants. That's just unbelievable.
92 was the slide, by the way.
So it was 92. I thought it was. Okay, so 8 plus 21, 29 years? 29 years. One more year and we'll drop it.
Thanks for making me Google it and look at pictures of it again.
Astros lead the West by 2 over Oakland, who is on fire. 8-2 in their last 10. They've won 5 in a row. The White Sox, they have pretty much all but run away in the Central. 10.5 up on Cleveland, who every team in the Central is under 500 except for Chicago. And then Tampa's 5 up now on Boston. Boston struggling, Tampa rolling. They've won 5 in a row, 8-2 in their last 10. Yankees have lost 1, and they're 7 back of Tampa, 2 back of Boston. Yankees and White Sox, of course, tomorrow night in the Field of Dreams game, which, by the way, all right, so let me give a quick plug to Darren and a quick reminder of something that's coming up tonight, because I was trying to find your 30 the 30 years
the Field of Dreams
30 years is the name of it. Okay. So I couldn't find it anywhere. Downloaded the Fox app, downloaded the Fox Sports app. Nada. They don't have it on there yet. So they're re-showing it tonight at 8:30 on Fox Sports 1. Tonight at 8:30 on Fox Sports 1. So I've got it recording, and I'll plan on watching, but I've got it recording too.
You're going to love it. I might watch it again. That's how good it is.
Yeah. Well, they have a bunch of re-showings of it, but I think there's like overnight and then some tomorrow. But I think it's 8:30 or maybe 7:30. I'm pretty sure it's 8:30 tonight on Fox Sports 1, and then tomorrow on Fox, coverage begins at 6:00. So they're going to be covering this thing on Fox starting at 6:00 tomorrow, and the game is until I believe 8. So it's 2 hours of pregame coverage. I saw Joe Buck this morning. Where did I see Joe Buck this morning?
Starbucks.
No, gas station. No, he was on Fox and Friends with Ainsley Earhart.
Okay.
And it was a cool interview, but they asked him, did you ever in your career think you'd be calling a game in Dyersville, Iowa? He goes, dude, I've done so many things in my career that I never dreamed of. And this is at the very top of the list. Never. But when Fox first, they started talking to Major League Baseball about doing this or whatever, and they called me and asked me, he was like, there was no chance that I wasn't going to push this thing through as quickly as possible. Couldn't wait. Have waited too long. The whole 9 yards. Craig, you can turn us off. Never seen Field of Dreams. Go ahead and let me have it. Yeah, that's dude. You what the hell is going on here? We got to get better audience. So, all right. We do have Keith Allsep coming up in about 10 minutes. I do though want to go back to what we were talking about in the top of the show, or part of what we were talking about at the top of the show, the preseason top 25 release yesterday, Darren. So kind of referenced 2020 earlier and what the top 12 preseason looked like and what the top 12 postseason would have looked like in the college football rankings. There were 7 teams of the preseason top 12 that if we had a college football playoff of 12 teams now, preseason top 12, they'd all been in there. There are 5 that would have been in there and 5, obviously, that it would have climbed their way in. Coastal Indiana, Iowa State, Cincinnati, A&M. I would say none of them are name brand college football programs. The most notable would be Texas A&M. You could say A&M is a name brand if you'd like to, but if you ask somebody in the Northwest, give me the top 10 programs in college football, I don't know that they're naming Texas A&M. So down here, we probably do that. But that was 2020. 2020 was kind of a screwy year. There was this COVID thing that happened last year, just all a bunch of junk. So I thought, well, maybe we should look at 2019. Let's get a real look at a real season that happened and kind of be able to diagnose it from there. So we did that. So in 2019, LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, Oklahoma, Georgia, that would have been your preseason top 5. Those are all name brand schools right now. Oregon, Baylor, Wisconsin, Florida, Penn State. I'm reading the wrong list here. Those would have been your postseason top 10 teams right there. LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, Oklahoma, Georgia, Oregon, Baylor, Wisconsin, Florida, Penn State, and then Utah and Auburn. Top 12 postseason in 2019. The preseason had Clemson, Bama, Georgia, Oklahoma, Ohio State, LSU, Michigan, Florida, Notre Dame, Texas. Part of the reason why Tom Herman isn't there anymore. Oregon and Texas A&M. Same thing. Guess what, Darren? 7 of those would have been in a postseason top 12. 5 teams that weren't in the preseason top 12 would have been in there. Baylor, Wisconsin, Penn State, Utah, Auburn. Noticeably absent, Alabama. So what we were discussing before we went to Hale, at least it's the way that I see it. There will be years where, like when you go to an expanded postseason, 12 teams, there will be a year when Clemson is not in there. It's going to happen. There's going to be a year when Alabama's not in there. It's going to be a year when Ohio State is not in there. Won't be consistent, at least not in the foreseeable future. Not that we see now. Everything does change. Alabama did have the 90s and early 2000s before Saban arrived. Anybody forget that? They were on probation.
Florida State had the 90s.
Yeah.
It changes.
It changes. Florida State sucks. There was a time when nobody ever saw Florida State not doing what Florida State was doing. Look what Florida, look at what they were doing. Look what Miami was doing in the 80s. Look where Southern Cal was back at the beginning of this century. I mean, they were at the top of the world, and they're climbing their way back there, but they haven't been any good. Brand name schools, not any good. So it's going to happen, but the foreseeable future doesn't have that, at least in my eyes. But what will also happen is it will mix the paint, man. Right now, this sport is painted with the same colors. So you'll mix the paint, put a little stir in, can just keep mixing. Changes colors a little bit, doesn't it? You know, wouldn't it be neat to see Wisconsin in there, or a Baylor in there, or a South Carolina, or an NC State? If you're a Clemson fan, no, you don't want to see either one of those teams. I get it. I'm not talking about from one specific fan base. I'm talking about for the health of the sport, related to what Dan Patrick and Paul Feinbaum both said yesterday, where Feinbaum said an expanded playoff will save it from itself, and Patrick said this sport is too predictable. So, like, if I asked Darren right now, as the expert you are, quite the expert, and I said, Darren, over the next 5 years, pick every college football national champion, you give me 3 teams every year. You're going to give me the same 3. You might be like, oh, yeah, I tell you what, I'll throw Georgia in there. But every year.
If I get 5, I'm giving you 3 for all 5. It's like the end of Wheel of Fortune now. They give you some of those letters that everybody picks. I'm picking Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State.
No question.
And I don't know.
Oklahoma.
Probably. But now they're about to go to the SEC, and who knows when that's going to happen. But, I mean, if I'm going to give you 5, I'm going to give you 3 and say the other 2 are wild cards anyway. If I'm picking the next 5, those are my 3, and I'm probably going to hit 1 or 2, if not more.
That's right. But those 3 every year are going to be in there. And I'm not even implying at all that this expanded playoff is going to change that, because I don't think it is. There will be the occasional year where one of those teams isn't there. Again, I get it. Or maybe 2. Who knows? But what I am implying is that we could have a postseason like in 2019 if the playoff was in play, where, how about this? A 5-12 matchup between Georgia and Auburn. What? For the second time that year? Are you kidding me? And then all of a sudden, one of those teams goes on and beats Ohio State, and they find their way in the national championship against LSU. I mean, you just don't know how it can play out. But the point is, that time of the year won't just be, oh God, who is it? Yeah, it's Clemson and Ohio State again. Yeah. I think we're going to watch Matlock. You know, I mean, they're fresh blood will help the sport. It doesn't mean that the Patriots weren't going to win the Super Bowl every other year, because they were with Tom Brady. But we still really enjoyed seeing those wild card games when all of a sudden the Cleveland Browns are in there.
That's why the thought
keeps the sport healthy.
Yeah, that's why, to me, the thought of playoff expansion is so much more appealing because it's going to happen, this group breaks away. Because then as you expand it, as you're saying, you're stirring the paint, and you've got all these name brands. There will be some outsiders that sneak in. Iowa State would be an outsider that could potentially sneak in this example this year. They're a Power 5 school. They're a potential top 5, if, who knows where they're going to end up this year. A lot of expectations and hope for them. But if they sneak in, they're not a marketable brand like others. But for the most part, you're going to get, of the 12, 7 or 8, if not more, like marketable brands like Alabama and Clemson and Michigan and Ohio State. Maybe Penn State sneaks in. Maybe Southern Cal or Oregon get good. Maybe a Texas bounces back. Maybe there's Oklahoma. And if you have a playoff with that much star power, I'm in. If you have a playoff where the field that you're pulling from is so much bigger, and because of that, significantly more watered down, and because we're expanding the playoffs, we're bringing other people in because we're going to be fair. No, that's where I have a problem with it.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously think that the top 12 would be the 12 best teams in the country if Cincinnati or Utah or BYU or Wake Forest or South Carolina or Boise State or whomever is one of the 12 best teams, then I want to see them in there. I don't care what the name is. If they're one of the best teams, I want to see them in there, period. And look, again, it might be Ohio State and Alabama that end back up in the national championship or Clemson and LSU or something like that. That might, if those are the best teams, generally that's how it works out. Like they're probably going to be there. But it doesn't mean that the health of the sport wouldn't be incredibly injected with I don't even know. Yeah, like if you had a 7-10 matchup between Penn State and Texas, I mean that's awesome. But if you had a 7-10 matchup between UCF at 10 and Oklahoma at 7, and UCF beat them in Norman. Wow. I mean, it's good for the sport. So I'm the reason we're talking about this is because when preseason polls come out, how do you look at them? Mm-hmm. And would you look at that? Did you ever see that YouTube video? And, but you would look to 25. Like right now, we're kind of focusing on, is our team in there and where are they? And then, who's at the top? Well, shocker. But if a preseason poll comes out in 2025 and the Gamecocks are at 24, you're going, well, now wait a second here. Hey, we're in the mix.
You're like an upset away.
Let's exactly. And all of a sudden so many, and then you're following so much throughout the year to see who is and isn't in the playoff and where they're going to land, are they going to host and this and the other. And then per the comments yesterday by Patrick and Feinbaum, I thought both of them are right. The sport is predictable, and Feinbaum is right. It could save itself from itself by injecting some new flavor. We'll see. I guess we need to inject some Keith flavor, huh? He's waiting in the wings. We're going to hit a timeout. Keith Allsep hosts the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast. He's going to join us, part 7 of It's Time for Carolina Football, up next on the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road with exciting news. It's springtime and we're playing ball. Most dealerships don't have any inventory, but at Stokes Volkswagen we do. So we're playing ball on every new Volkswagen in stock. Every new Volkswagen available with 0 down. Qualified buyers can sign and drive with interest-free financing for 60 months. Remember, Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road is the fastest, easiest way to sell your car and get the most money for your trade. Plus, we'll take any trade in any condition, paid off or not. Is your credit in a slump?
Strike 2.
If you've got $500 down and you make at least $2,000 per month, our lenders can get you approved. So if you want to strike out, that's okay. But if you want to hit a home run and save on a new Volkswagen, come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road or StokesVW.com.
$1,666 per month per $1,000 borrowed for 60 months at 0% APR with 0 down. Plus tax tag. Includes $499.50 administration fee. Subject to BCI credit approval. Expires month end.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Shrimping season's back. That means local caught shrimp. That's right. Local caught shrimp back on the menu at the Dog and Duck. All 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road, now featuring once again local caught hand-breaded shrimp, plus other daily specials like the Game Day Burger every Wednesday, Rib Night on Friday, rotating taps all the time, and all the TVs you can possibly imagine for whatever you want to watch. The Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
It's time for Carolina football.
The rave breaks out in Columbia. The electricity here in Columbia, well, has been buzzing loudly all weekend. Left side, Jeffries got space, and a touchdown.
This is Rodgers again to the 25, 20, 15, 10. Rodgers scores! Bernard Brown, he's up to the 20 and comes to the 24, bounces outside, and he's still going. He's bound.
What a hit! Ball's free, on the ground. South Carolina deserves to have it, and they do.
Danny Hill, he'll run. Touchdown! Oh, watch him celebrate now.
And the atmosphere, the electricity, the passion of the crowd in Williams-Brice Stadium is second to none.
I think we need to get Keith Allsep the Steve Tannehill mullet hat.
Like the commercial of who is Clayton on ESPN when he's got that ponytail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Keith, you know what I'm talking about. The old hats, the old mullet hats from Tannehill days.
Yeah, I remember those.
Would you wear one of those?
Probably not.
All right, let me ask you, before we get into anything else, let me ask you both this question. Do you think that you'll be alive in 2050?
No, I hope so.
I'm asking this for a reason. I'm not asking you to predict your death. I'm just asking for a reason.
I would be 87 then.
Oh, I used to be a young buck. Good news. The USGA has announced 6 upcoming U.S. Opens for Oakmont and 4 upcoming Opens for Marion Golf Club. And they will play Marion Golf Club in 2030 and 2050. And they'll play Oakmont in 25, 34, 42, and 49. So make your plans now. There you go.
All right. So if I'm around, you have to agree to wheel me out there.
Who does this?
Into the gallery and prop me up.
I don't know if I'll be around. I mean,
it's
who
a
the hell schedules a tournament for 30 years away? Like, what happens between now and then? Well, call a meeting Monday morning. We're going to have to figure out where we're going to put this. I mean, what do you do?
Hey, I know who won't be the women's Olympic basketball coach in 2050. Dawn Staley.
That ship has sailed.
In fact, she won't be the women's basketball coach in 2024 when they have the next Olympics. And so I know this is about Carolina football, but have you guys, and it's only 10 years old, but the SEC network, has there ever been a takeover day for just a player, for one player?
No,
12 hours of programming. Okay. That's what Dawn Staley has brought to South Carolina, because without her, Asia Wilson would have been at UConn or Tennessee or someplace like that. And so I thought it was really neat. And so I got to give a big shout out to Dawn Staley and to Asia Wilson for winning that gold medal when they basically gave her a team that were half of them were the Golden Girls. And I don't mean just golden medal girls. They were literally the Golden Girls.
Yeah.
And some players that really had no business playing there, and they were like, okay, we're throwing this big anchor around your neck and throwing you out in the middle of the ocean. If you swim all the way in, you get the gold medal. If not, it's your fault.
That's right.
And so I think, boom, she just won it and dropped the microphone and said, peace out.
I don't blame her. Darren and I were talking about it after she won they won the gold medal last week. And I mentioned to Darren that you could make an argument, and I don't even know if it's much of an argument, that Dawn Staley is the most well-rounded now person, whatever, in the history of women's basketball with all of her achievements. I mean, I'm talking about she was a player and she was a coach, and she's literally done everything as both. I don't think that anybody else out there has that resume. There's obviously Gino and Pat and them, they have more national championships as coaches, but they never accomplished what she accomplished as a player.
Yeah, I don't think old Gino could have played women's basketball back in the day.
Yeah. Well, might have a shot. Might have a shot today.
A couple years.
Hey, today he'd go put a wig on and tell somebody he's a, hey, I'm a female. Oh, run on out there. I mean, it's incredible what she's done. I think you're right though, Keith. I think now she's focused on South Carolina, and that's it.
She is an extraordinary individual, and Asia Wilson and Breonna Stewart, they are or should be the face of USA basketball moving forward.
No question.
But because of politics, you just don't know, who will be. And so, at any rate, it's time for Carolina football.
Man, this, that, and the other. Yep. Well, Keith, we're getting close, my friend. We are getting close. August the 11th. Matter of fact, we are, what are we, 3 weeks away?
We are 24 days away from Carolina football.
In 3 weeks from the SEC and a little over 2 weeks from football itself.
Yeah, I think we're 17 days today from college football.
All right, what has stood out to you, Keith, 5 days into camp?
I mean, I just think it's too early to tell on most stuff. I mean, to me, the most interesting comment was Jamal Brown saying no offense will figure out this defense. But, I mean, they're not in full pads yet. I mean, I just suggest everybody slow down. This is going to be a work in progress. Nobody really knows exactly what the offense is going to look like or how Shane Beamer's going to coach on the sideline because he's never done it before. And, I would just caution fans to let's see what comes out of the first scrimmage. And I still think the offense will evolve over the course of the season.
Yeah, look at that, Jamie. There's Jamie. I didn't even realize Jamie had ducked out on us.
Yeah, no, I had to I accidentally clicked a button and didn't mean to. Sorry about that. Yeah, look, they're the unknowns. Keith, I tell you what, to tie into the unknown conversation, I mentioned this to Hale earlier. I'm excited, not because I know that it's going to be good. I'm excited because I don't know what it's going to be, and that's the offense. That's what I'm excited about. I think honestly, defensively, this team is going to probably. Last year they got worse. That's not going to happen this year. I think they'll get better as the year goes along. The offensive side, I don't know because I don't really know anything about it. I mean, we're hearing all these, big terms, coaches that they've stolen this from and that from, and I know there's players over there. Look, I know some guys in the program that are incredibly excited about, some of the guys that are out there. They're pretty good. But at the same time, it's like a big canvas, and they're just painting this canvas. And I don't know when that painting is going to be done. And until we see the finished product, I don't know what the offense is going to look like. But it is exciting and very intriguing.
Yeah, I don't think they do either. I mean, obviously, look, you want to play to your strengths. That's running the football. Whether it's Kevin Harris, Marshawn Lloyd, Zaquandre White, Rashad Amos, maybe even Juju McDowell. You've got a quarterback in Luke Doty that's got legs. You're probably going to have some quarterback run game in there. You have to play to your strengths. And, the media boys are getting to watch 15 minutes of practice, but, is it E.J. Jenkins really a second team tight end, or is that
no
more for show? It's kind of a shell game because you really don't want, we've talked about this. You really don't want anybody to know. I think They have players on the offensive line. 9 players have combined to start 84 games. Defensive front should be 9, 10, 11 deep with guys that can help them. And, it's going to be up to Torian Gray to knock off the learning curve and get those guys ready to go. But you've got Eastern Illinois, and then you got on the road at East Carolina, and then you got Georgia. And so you should be 2-1, right? I mean, 2 wins, 1 game you're probably not going to win. And then the swing games get started with Kentucky. And so to me, they have, plenty of time. Even once you get into the season, the offense, it's going to have some moving parts because there's probably going to be a guy that they didn't get to coach in the spring, or a guy that is just really the light bulb came on. And all of a sudden, he makes 1 or 2 plays, and then he's in the lineup and he's making 5 or 6 plays because they're getting more opportunities.
All right, so let's go back to 2005. All right, Keith, Steve Spur is about to make his debut as a head coach at South Carolina. The running backs on that team were named Mike Davis, not Mike Davis is in the NFL, for those that might be wondering. Bobby Wallace. I think that was pretty sure that was Dacus Terman's last year. Who, by the way, I loved watching play football. But and then on the at the receiver position, you had the big name, but he hadn't broken out yet, and that was Sidney Rice. Sidney Rice, for those who have forgotten now, was a 2-star athlete, basically. He was a football player, and he was a basketball player. He was a 2-star athlete who ended up being one of the best wide receivers to ever play at South Carolina, no question. But he hadn't broken out yet. Kenny McKinley was out there at wide receiver. It was his first year. He had already been moved from quarterback. Nobody knew what to expect out of Kenny McKinley. Nobody knew any of this stuff. It's all hindsight. But the big name was Savell Newton. He was kind of the guy, and he ended up carrying the football, caught the football, threw the football. He even played defense. Unbelievable. But nobody knew. Oh, certainly the most important name on the whole team was Michael Flint. He held everything together. But nobody. But Keith, my point is there was literally no star power at running back. None. Blake was your quarterback. I love Blake. He's a hell of a roof salesman now. He had some great games at Carolina, but he hadn't proven to anybody that he was an elite player. You had nothing proven at wide receiver. You had nothing proven at tight end. And overall, in that era, they were pretty good offense. Is there more now than Spurrier walked into in 2005?
Well, I mean, I think you got a better offensive line than Steve Spurrier inherited.
Yeah, they were bad. They weren't good.
You got better tight ends than Steve Spurrier inherited. We had Robert Pavlovich, and I just remember Spurrier saying, "Yep, well, we're just going to let old Pavlovich stand over there and rest the next couple of weeks."
Yeah, well, he looked like he was about 60 anyways.
Yeah.
But I think they have more options than they had 15 years ago. So what I'm getting at here is scheme and play calling is very
significantly better than it was 15 years ago. In
the personnel on offense,
league.
Oh yeah. Well, it's a different league. The offensive league is entirely different. I guess what I'm getting at is play calling and scheme is so important this year. I mean, it is because we don't know that there isn't another Sidney Rice on this team. Everybody can assume that all they want to. We don't know that. We have no idea. We didn't know there's a Sidney Rice on that team. We didn't know Kenny McKinley existed on that team. DeCarrion Jordan might be Kenny McKinley. We have no idea. We do know that Kevin Harris is there and some of these other guys. So scheme, play calling, incredibly valuable.
Yeah, but I mean, you've also got a guy that has never been a coordinator at a Power 5 level in Marcus Satterfield. That could be good or bad.
That's right.
Versus Stephen Orr Spurrier, who's maybe the greatest play caller of all times in college football, and who just had that magical quality that exuded confidence. And hey, let's just keep playing. Let's just keep playing. You know, as the years went by, the visor came off and hit the video guy. It was I think the headset more than anything. But guys would just keep on playing, and guys never, because Spurrier never thought they were out of it. They just kept playing at a high level. You know, can Shane Beamer, can Marcus Satterfield do that to a team that has to have somewhat of a fractured psyche after going 4-8 and 2-8? You know, Lou Holtz's last team, they lost that brawl. They lost the game and they lost the fight.
Yeah,
At Clemson. But
bad day.
They were a bowl eligible team.
Yeah.
You know, they had success. Most of these guys have not had much success. Other than beating Georgia and, you know, managing to only beat Vanderbilt the rest of the way, and then beating Auburn and then not winning another game.
So I think, Keith, as fans will look for a moment that will dictate the future of the program. And you could claim that in 2005, the 30-22 win over Florida maybe was that part of that moment, at least for South Carolina under Spurrier. Remember that day very well. Nobody left the ballpark for 45 minutes after the game was over. It was incredible. I don't think that was the moment, though. And even though 2007 and 2008 and a lot of 2009, even though Carolina beat Clemson at the end of it, even though those years weren't 10-win seasons or anything like that, I think the moment that changed the direction and it at least established what this program was going to be under Spurrier was the loss against Auburn in 2006. Because if it wasn't for a drop pass, Carolina probably, I'm not going to say would have, but could have certainly upset the number 2 team in the country that night in Williams-Brice Stadium. And they didn't, but they played all the way to the final whistle, and they battled their asses off, and the whole ballpark clapped for them, if you remember, as they walked off the field in a close loss. And Spurrier said after the game, "Don't clap for my guys when we lose. We got to win." And from that moment, it was like, damn, Steve Spurrier's in town, and the expectation around here, it doesn't matter if you're ranked number 2 or number 200, the expectation is to win. And that was the night we knew it. That moment has to come for Shane Beamer.
I mean, I agree. I remember it well. I was there. There was a lightly recruited 3-star athlete out of the Atlanta area named Jared Cook, who was a 230-pound true freshman who caught a touchdown pass down the seam, but, you know, also dropped that huge pass down the seam. And you also had Auburn possess the football for the entire third quarter and into the first play of the fourth quarter, because they had a long touchdown drive to start, and then they onside kicked it and recovered. And I think Kenny Irons scored on a 1-yard run on the first play of the fourth quarter. And then South Carolina finally got the football back.
Who also played at South Carolina before he transferred to Auburn.
Correct.
He had a rough return to Williams-Brice Stadium because I remember when he walked out of the tunnel, and there were some people that I wish weren't there when he walked out. But, like, those are the moments that define – I mean, you can't compare Steve and Shane. There is no comparison. But there's something that will define your tenure everywhere that you go. And so I'm anxious to see what that's going to be and when that's going to be for Shane. It just happens. See, it's not planned, but it just happens. But I'm, you know, the sooner the better, obviously. But that never happened under Will, Keith. Like, you never got that moment that made everybody look, even if we lose some games, we at least know we're headed in the right direction. Like, it just never felt like that.
Well, I mean, I thought it kind of felt like that after they beat Michigan on New Year's Day in Tampa.
Okay, I'll give you that. That's true. But then they hired McClendon full time.
They did.
So
I think that image died in the swamp in the fourth quarter in 2018, and the final nail was put in Bank of America Stadium, or the final nails won the Belt Bowl, and then maybe the final nail, that upset loss to North Carolina when Jake threw it 20 yards over Shi Smith's head when he was wide freaking open. That would have, for the winning touchdown.
Yeah. But of course, you offset that throw with the one that he made against NC State to open the 2017 season, and boy, Jake, he had some days, and he had some days. But that was the biggest difference. I mean, as we kind of approach the season for Shane, and we wonder what his tenure at Carolina. Hopefully, as you said, he retires here after 20 years. He's old and gray and bald, and he's got a bunch of titles under him, or old, gray, or whatever. The thing with Steve that we didn't get under Will was, again, like the Auburn game, for instance, in 2005, the Antonio Hefner game. That's like one of the three games in my life that if I could somehow find a drug to block all of that out, I'd do it. That was the biggest debacle in the history of the program. I mean, that night was, I'm not saying in the grand scheme, but like calling 2 timeouts before the first snap of the game, it was like, you gotta be kidding me. And then it was just, but the point was
plenty of debacles greater than that. Okay.
Not before a game started.
It's hard before a game starts.
At least you felt like you had a chance when you kicked off. We didn't feel like you had a chance when we kicked off.
So this year is I believe the 50th anniversary of the Sigma Nu prank at Williams-Brice, where they come out dressed as Clemson players.
50 years.
So I think that, look, I'm a lot older than you. I've seen a lot more bad football than you. To me, the bigger debacles was losing to the Citadel at home, Richard Bell losing to Furman at home, the entire reign of King Dixon. Okay, I mean, there's a lot of things that I could come up with. Now, I was at Auburn when Antonio Hefner trotted out there, and you had to call 2 timeouts and then got a false start penalty before you actually ran the play. Yeah, but it was a beautiful night on the plains, and I still remember the eagle circling the stadium. I was there with a good friend of mine. I mean, it was magical. And then we decided, pretty much right after that at halftime we were out of there. So,
but my point though, Keith, is like Muschamp, when those losses happened under Will, they spiraled, and look, Steve's been around a long time, so he's able to stop that, and that's one of the keys, I think, to Shane. He's going to get his ass beat once. It's going to happen. So how do you come out of that? The 2008 Florida game in the swamp, what a nightmare. None of these things changed the trajectory of the program in the opposite direction under Steve. They did it. I think you mentioned it earlier. He just keep going. Hey, it's one game. Let's go play next week. We'll be all right. And that didn't happen under Will. And that's why I think the fan base under Spur, even if you lost bad, or 2007 when you lost 5 in a row to finish the year, you still felt like, look, there might be some problems, but we're going in the right direction. And people really lost that, as you mentioned, probably the Florida game in 2018 under Will. It just never got better.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so let me ask you this. So this was posed to me last night in the Garnet and Black Town Hall. the T-shirt game. Like, what games, if South Carolina won this year, would there be? It would be a T-shirt game, like Garnet and Black Traditions or Adams Bookstore or whoever would print a T-shirt about it.
Wouldn't it matter how it happened too, though? Like, if there's some Hail Mary to win the game or some 56-yard kick, like, that's T-shirt worthy, right?
But who would be the opponents that would be worthy enough? Like, I mean, if you beat Vanderbilt on a Hail Mary, would you really, I mean, South Carolina had basically a Hail Mary and then a field goal to come back and beat, the Fighting Skip Holtzes of Louisiana Tech. They didn't make a T-shirt.
Well, I mean,
what games, whether it's a miraculous play or an upset win, what would be Shane Beamer's T-shirt game this year? What are the options?
I think in this order, in my opinion, it would be Clemson, A&M, and Georgia. That in that order would be that's my opinion personally for three different reasons. But Clemson, because it's Clemson and they'll probably be ranked number 1 or 2. A&M because you've never done it. In Georgia because it's your border rivalry. Oh, by the way, you beat them 2 years ago in their own ballpark. And
the Georgia game comes first, right?
I agree.
The chance to say this is the Beamer legacy getting started. Where's that flag getting planted? Is it a win over Georgia, or does it take until later in the year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be Georgia because you could make a T-shirt that basically it'd be back to back in the hedges.
Yeah. Could also make one that says you're not in the playoff because of us, Clemson.
That's exactly right.
Here's your Dr. Pepper.
Or Georgia.
Yeah.
Or Georgia, because
have a Dr. Pepper on us, DJ. Just kidding, Clemson fans. We're just having fun. Jeez, everybody.
I had the same three answers that you had, Jamie. Right, like Georgia because it's Georgia. They're top 5. It would be back to back in the hedges.
Yeah.
A&M because you've never done it before, and you got the Bonham Trophy that you could,
Oh, don't forget about that.
No, you could put something about the Alamo on that.
Put that next to the damn Mayor's Cup that nobody knows about.
And then you could have, no fruit sucks like the Big Orange, if you beat Clemson. So
that's an interesting question. I'll have to, by the way, take a picture, Keith. You'll remember these of some things I have framed. You remember back when they used to do those novelty posters that they would print immediately after ball games?
Yes, I had a bunch of those. Yeah,
I've got 3 of them framed. I got to find the others. 2 of them are the Outback Bowls against Ohio State. But that's an interesting question. Yeah, I think that again, and I know you do a lot of this on your program, and we certainly do a lot of it here. We can go round and round about all the things we're hearing, and this, that, and the other, and this guy, and we even talked about some of that at the start of this segment. But at the end of the day, part of this series that you and I are doing as Time for Carolina Football is to also examine the history of the program and to try to figure out what the future may look like based on what we know. And I think we all feel pretty good right now about where things are, but it's August. They haven't lost 4 in a row yet. They might. And when they do, what happens after that? Does what happened under Muschamp happen? Does what happened under Spurrier happen? We don't know.
Yep. Well, I mean, I don't think Shane Beamer is Will Muschamp or Steve Spurrier. He's Shane Beamer. But there is a lot of positive energy in the program. You have had the summer of Shane with recruiting, with the momentum. I mean, a lot of people are sitting up and taking notice of what Shane Beamer is doing. Michael W. Bratton from Saturday Down South and that SEC podcast was on the Power 5, which is a national podcast. And, he said he is definitely buying what Shane Beamer is selling, and he has been very impressed with South Carolina's new head football coach. And to me, I sit up and take notice of that, not because, I got a good relationship with him, and we're on each other's shows every now and then, but he's one of the two guys, when they say stuff about the SEC, I listen. It's him and Josh Pate. And I think both of those guys have positive impressions of Shane Beamer. It is going to be a building process, unless your guy leaves for the NFL or retires or whatever. Nobody usually inherits a great situation. Probably the last dude to do that was Lincoln Riley.
That's right.
So Gamecock fans got to be patient. There's going to be growing pains. It's going to take time, but hopefully there is a T-shirt game this year. I think that would, go a long way to helping Shane Beamer. I don't know how many games they're going to win. I do know there are other teams in the SEC. They got big-time recruits and promising players and experienced players. They're bailing out on their new head coaches. Nobody's doing that to Shane Beamer. And that's encouraging. And, nobody's had a worse summer or a worse year than Tennessee, and nobody could be happier about it than yours truly.
You got that right. Auburn, by the way, is having some troubles as well. Defensive tackle starter Tyrone Truesdale left the program and I guess is going to enter the transfer portal if he hasn't already. But apparently there were some issues between him and Brian Harsin, amongst others, in that locker room. And good for you. Good luck, man. Whatever. I don't care. The less, the better down there.
I'd just like to say this is the first time I've ever been in an episode of Seinfeld, because to me, today has been like an episode of Seinfeld.
That's a compliment. I don't know what it means, but if we're being compared to that, then okay.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Well, yesterday, who got mad at us yesterday? Mike Morgan. Oh, man, you hit me with the hard-hitting questions. I don't know what we're doing different this week. What are we doing? Are we doing something different?
I don't know.
Here, at the end of the day, it's football season. It's time to start talking.
Hit with the hard-hitting questions.
We need to quit fluffing this crap around. Let's talk some real stuff here, man.
Yeah.
All right, Keith.
What shirt are we making?
Exactly. Yeah. Who wants to wear a T-shirt? What's it going to look like?
The absence of JC. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Well, we did ask Hale earlier if we saw him yesterday. I said, how thin does he look? He said, next question, please. So we'll have to address that with JC in the next couple of days. All right, what's coming up on the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast?
All right, so welcoming a brand new guest and fellow podcaster, Chris Pascal of Pascal's Gamecock podcast.
Okay.
We're recording our Wednesday show later today. Then on Thursday, we've got Colin Taylor and Hale McGranahan on Big Thursday. So it'll be a supersized Thursday. And then Friday, we've got Mike Uva. There's nobody I like better to wind up the week chopping it up. And there'll be some Tom Brady talk in there for sure.
And probably mixing a biscuit or two, I would assume.
Can't wait to get to Columbia. The morning of the Kentucky game, I am having the Uva, and if I get sick and throw up and miss the game, I'm blaming it on him. So,
you won't. I've had it. It's. I like it. Well, Darren bought it for me. It's good.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Well, can't wait. Can't wait to do this again, Keith. Next Wednesday, we got 3 more, and then it's time, really, truly, for Carolina football. As always, the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast is where you want to go. It's the best one out there. It is the best one out there. It is honest. It is awesome. And Clint says the Town Hall tailgate is coming to Columbia. So we're looking forward to that.
That's right. And if you sign up for an annual subscription, you basically get 3 months free because they won't charge you again until September the 1st of 2022. So that's over 2.5 months free right now.
Wow.
So a lot of guys are upgrading their subscriptions to the VIP because the town halls are more popular than ever. And so come and check us out at the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast.
You the man, Keith. Stay cool over there. Hope your AC works.
It is working. unfortunately, I've had to spend enough money the last 18 months ensuring that we could get through this summer. So,
well, you're looking good, pal. No sweat. Nice T-shirt. I'll tell you what. Next week, I'll wear your T-shirt and you wear mine.
Oh, how cute!
I've got your T-shirt. It's folded up in the laundry. I wore it the other day. I'll wear it next Wednesday.
Okay, we'll see.
We got a deal.
Maybe we can just all wear. We can be like stepbrothers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I'll wear a national shirt, so at least I've got some red to you know with the garnet sort of thing.
Stepbrothers, like the movie. Darren, don't put your nuts on my drum set.
My wife was asking if I've ever seen that last night with the daughter down there. I was like, we should watch this. Like, nah, no, not right now. We shouldn't.
No. All right, Keith. See you, brother.
Thanks, guys. Enjoyed it always.
Always. There you go. Keith Allsep, host of the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast. And JB and GOT. It's overtime. 206. Sorry. We control it around here. I don't know what we're doing tomorrow. David Shelton tomorrow. Scott Glaze tomorrow. Missing somebody with football tomorrow. Got Reggie Merriweather starting next week with Clemson. Can't wait to get him back in. Known Reggie a long time. Great dude. Michael Flint on Friday. Raphael. They're getting there. Closer. It's hot outside. Drink some water. But it's not raining. Thank God. Thanks to Keith and Hale, McGranahan, and Darren Goldwater, and all of you. Have a wonderful Wednesday afternoon. And tomorrow at noon, the JB and Goldwater show driven by Stokes Volkswagen returns. And we'll see you then.